Happy Monday, everyone. Colin Egglesfield here. It is time for another edition of Coffee with Colin, coming at you from Chicago, from my living room. Hope you guys are having a great beginning to your week. And I just wanted to say that I am happy that you guys are here. Thanks so much for being with us over the past few weeks. We are in season 3. This has been an awesome season, and tonight's guest is someone who you're definitely going to want to hear about his story. He's a filmmaker, and he's got a really interesting story about resiliency and just about the artistry of really what it means to be a director and really care about what it is that the stories that we tell in life. And just hearing about or just reading about his bio and hearing about more about his story and what compelled him to work on this project for 10 years. That he finally was able to get onto HBO. And I watched it this weekend. It is incredible. It's called The Lady and the Dale. It is about a woman named Liz Carmichael. And it's just a fascinating story that we're going to be chatting about in a little bit. But first, I would love to let you guys know that we started our next Inspire cohort yesterday. We've got a great, amazing group of people in there. And it has been awesome to just be keeping cultivating this incredible community. Everyone here who has been through Inspire and everyone who is in the new Inspire, it's awesome to just stay connected and to be having these conversations, these deep, intimate conversations about why it is that what is it that motivates us, what inspires us, what keeps us going. Because sometimes out there in the real world, we don't always get to be our authentic, true selves. We aren't always able to talk about the things that really, truly matter to us. And that's why I'm really excited about tonight's guest, because the story that he tells is all about authenticity. The story he tells is all about what it means to, regardless of what your environment tells you or where you come from or what challenges you face, this story that my guest tells is truly all about you just owning your authentic, true self. And that is the message that we keep talking about. This is the conversation that we keep sharing. And before we get deeper into it, I just want to say thank you to our sponsor, Picticular. My buddy Todd Courtney created this amazing app, which allows you to be able to watch and find movies that are trending. It allows you to share what you're watching with your friends. And when people ask me, Colin, I saw you have a new movie coming out, where can I watch it? I don't even know where you can watch some of my movies, because a lot of movies are on different platforms nowadays. And what's great about Picticular is that if you are looking for a certain movie, or if there's an actor or actress that you are wanting to find out what their projects are, all you got to do is go to Picticular. You can download it from the App Store or the Google Play Store. It's free. You log in there, you type in whoever it is that you want to see, Colin Egglesfield, and then boom, out pops all the films and the projects that the people that you want to be watching is right there. And then it also, there's the ability for you to be able to swipe left and swipe right for your favorite films and see what is trending out there. So be sure to download that. And I just want to read a little bit about my guest before he comes on here, because again, he has a fabulous story. And I can't wait for you guys to meet him and to get to know him a little bit better. But my guest is originally from Ohio, and he and his family moved to New Hampshire. And what is really amazing is that he won $3,000 rolling dice at 18 years old. And he ended up, this is when he was 18 years old, in his dorm room in college, and he used the $3,000 that he won rolling dice, not advocating gambling, but hey, worked out for him. And he used the money to quietly pack up his suitcase and leave without telling anyone, and moved out to California because he had a passion for making movies. Now, once he got out to California, he went to CSUN for screenwriting, and he ended up learning everything he needed to learn about filmmaking from watching YouTube. Guys, you don't have to go to the most prestigious schools or work at the most prestigious companies to follow your passion. My next guest is the true example of all it takes is a dream and a vision, and where there's a will, there's a way. And through his desire to learn the nuts and bolts of movie making, he just continued on with his passion. And we're going to hear more about what it was that his whole process of what it took bringing his docu-series that is now on HBO to actually onto air, and how the pitch process worked, and him working with the Duplass brothers, who are some of my idols. These guys are amazing, and can't wait to chat a little bit about them as well. But again, yeah, this story is just a story of true resiliency. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Mr. Nick Cammilleri.
What's up, man?
How you doing, Nick?
I'm well, thank you, man. The more you were talking, I was like, I can't wait to meet this person. Who is it? It was just, man, I don't even know if I can live up to that introduction. But
yeah, well, here
thank
you
you.
are.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it, man.
Well, thanks for being here. And man, dude, I watched this miniseries, The Lady in the Dale, this past weekend, and just like unlike anything you're ever going to see out there. And I can see why you were so interested in telling this story, but would you mind just kind of sharing with us how this whole story, how you got interested in this story? Tell us a little bit about Liz Carmichael, and then we can get into a little deeper dive of how the whole process came to be about you actually making the project.
Yeah. So, I mean, this story is about Elizabeth Carmichael, was not only a trans woman, but an automobile entrepreneur in the 1970s who attempted to create a three-wheel car called the Dale Automobile, to which she ran into two reporters who started to dig deep into her story and maybe find out that some things weren't true, or things were missing, or maybe some of these stories weren't adding up, and come to find out that faking it till you make it went a lot further than most people, I think, thought. Mostly in regards to the automobile, trying to put that together and basically do it before the government shut her down. So in that process, we come to learn what that really meant, and then we come to understand Liz's backstory and her family, and about the prior marriages and the life, and a life on the run, and as a criminal and a counterfeiter and an alleged arsonist, and kind of all these things. And it was and to go into your next part of your question, which is that, like, diving into that was like, my interest in that was because of all the things I just named, which are like, it's like the world's greatest onion. How do you not, like, every time I would dig into something, I would find something else, and I'm a person who gets bored real quick, so like I just would find another thing and another thing.
I mean, it's like Pandora's box. It's like I'm watching this thing, I'm like, and now then this happened, and then this happened, and then they went, like, this story it just keeps unfolding.
It just keeps going and going. I mean, it's like a wall of buried treasure, and you find another wall of buried treasure. Like you just keep finding incredible stuff. And I mean, that's what kept me going throughout the years, was finding all this stuff. Was I just continuously could not believe, like, when I would do interviews with people, and I could not believe what they were telling me. I mean, at one point, I remember cackling. It's like 2016 or 17, and I remember one of the guys was like, yeah, so basically the mob helped us build our car, and I was like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, and you're just like, okay, yeah, you're just like you said it the way you're describing the weather, like it's the level of normalcy that a lot of things that would otherwise look at people side-eyed was very normal to a lot of people. But it was incredible to me, and it was exciting to feel like you're in a foreign territory where nobody else is nobody else is on the train. It's like you're on the moon. Nobody else is even close to where you are. You're in the corner of this world where people have overlooked this story, or just it's lost to time, or for whatever reason. And I'm just like, I feel like that's the best analogy. I feel like I'm alone on the moon, and I'm just picking up rocks and being like, well, I guess this is what it's like. And it's a very interesting feeling to feel like you're discovering something, and you're discovering it for the first time, and you feel like you're the only person discovering it, all this stuff at once.
Yeah. And it sounds like, I mean, you've been working on this, or you worked on this for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So from when you saw this story first on, what was it? Unsolved Mysteries?
Yeah.
And so you're sitting where in your living room, and you're like, you see this episode of Unsolved Mysteries about Liz Carmichael saying that this transsexual male to female is on the lam, hiding out somewhere. She's in Texas, I believe, at this point. And so this story airs. You see this, and then you're like, "What? I have to tell this story, or what?" How did it then turn into this 10-year journey of, I want to tell this story?
I think it kind of went through, like anything, I think it kind of goes through different phases or evolutions. Like, I was at my grandmother's house. It was like 2 a.m. and I was watching Lifetime. She's only got like 4 channels. And like one of them was Lifetime, and I was watching Lifetime, and then Unsolved Mysteries came on. I was like, yeah, sure. What the hell? And then it came on, and I saw that episode, and I was like, what? I remember being like, wait, I had so many questions. And I remember thinking like, oh, don't worry. I bet there's a 700-page book that'll answer all these. And I went on Amazon to go buy it, and there was no book. And then and I remember there was nothing. There was like no documentary. There's no movie. There was no movie of the week. I was so sure there would be a movie of the week. There was like nothing. And then I immediately was like sitting there. And at the time I'd wanted to direct. And I remember thinking like, I was trying to build this trajectory out of how to get to where I wanted to go.
And how old were you at this point?
My God, 2011. So let's see. That would have been 15 plus that equals about 24. So, and so, yeah, so I was coming into this phase, was like trying to figure out how to progress or hit the trajectory of directing that I wanted to get to. And so I was like, okay, I'll shoot 3 shorts. And then in between those 3 shorts, I will make this documentary, because documentaries take 7 to 10 years. So to me, it made logical sense, because you can always get better at shooting a documentary over time. You're on sets, and you're dealing with actors, and you're getting better technically at stuff. You're learning. You're always reading. Like it's through osmosis that you get better at it. So I was like, so I would shoot stuff at the doc, then shoot a short, shoot stuff at the doc, and shoot a short. Like I was satiating the demons, because screenwriting is what I really enjoy. Screenwriting, like, so scripted writing and directing is what I love to do. But like the documentary to me felt like a labor. It felt like I call it a crusade, but that makes me sound extreme and intense. But like, it felt like it needed to be done, because people were 40 years old when they worked at the company, and this was 40 years later. So you're basically describing something where people are dying at this point. Stuff is being thrown out. Like, this is it. And it's clear that nobody else was doing it. Like,
and why do you think the story needed to be told?
It felt like the most incredible story I'd ever heard in my life. And I was like, that's it. Like, it fit a number of different things. I love true crime. Like, I love the 1970s Los Angeles. Like, I love stories that are rags to riches to rags, and I love tragedies. And so for me, it fit all these different elements. And I wanted to. It was a story I thought was really, really important, because I thought she was one of the best anti-heroes I had ever seen. Mm-hmm. And I watched a decade of anti-heroes. I watched Walter White and Vic Mackey, and it's like all these people who I was like, well, we need this. Like, this is important. And I just knew that she's a great, like, pulp comic character, just larger than life. Like, everything about Liz was cranked to 11, was always done to the max. And to me, that was really important. It was like, it felt like one of my favorite movies growing up was Street Fighter. And it was like that movie because it was so over the top. Yeah. And it was larger than life. And I feel like it was almost like she was kind of ripped from a comic book.
This is it. It's almost unreal, like completely larger than life.
Yeah.
Hear her talk, like her kids talk about what it was like growing up with a father who transitioned into a male, and then it's saying that they have got 2 moms now. And what I admired about Liz is that through it all, she just was herself. And she even talks about just how she was like this crusader, for the lack of a better description, crusader for just being yourself, and being someone who cares about other people, because she cared about her family. And it was great to see that the people in her life loved her and cared about her so much to be able to accept her for just who she truly was on the inside. And then on top of it, she just goes out and has this dream, and she's going to prove everyone wrong because of what she believes in. I mean, it's an incredibly compelling story.
Yeah, and it certainly finds its place somewhere in the place of like a place of you have this warmth and acceptance, and then there's this multitude of people on the other side who come from this place of, I don't know if you call it naivety or ignorance, and finding the place in the middle where it becomes a true crime story is like the really fascinating tug of war, like in between those two things, which is infinitely fascinating. And I had this conversation with Zachary, our co-director, who when I first started out, I remember, I wasn't involved in the LGBT community. So one of the things that I wrote down a lot of questions when I first watched the episode, one of them was just like, why do they keep referring to her as a man? I remember thinking, like, when I Googled it, I saw that she was living as a woman 25 years later in Austin. And I was like, well, she's clearly living as a woman. So why does everyone keep saying that? And then the more I would dig, I would be like, why does everyone keep saying that? Like, I don't understand. And I never understood it. And then I realized it was just naivety on my part to be like, this is transphobia. But I was so far on the other end, I just accepted immediately that she was a woman that I never thought that people would just immediately be like, no, she's not. And then not only would they think she's not a woman, but they would be like, no, it comes down to, you're now doing the math on someone's genitalia to be like, and I'm just like, what on earth is happening? And it showed me how far removed I was from this, because I had put together all this stuff, but was still struggling with core concepts of why are we now breaking down someone's anatomy to this level? Why do you care more about their anatomy than they do? Like, yeah, that's creepy, man. That's weird, and it's out there, and it's just like, it's a level of transphobia. I'm a hard pass on that stuff, but it's, but this idea, like I said, it's the idea of coming to terms with all this stuff, of people's perspectives back then, and I think in a sense coming to see, like, not how they evolve, but you're saying like it's still the same, but you see that train of thinking all the way through from the 70s till today, and you get to see through that montage at the end how it I guess I was gonna say transmogrify, but nobody knows what that means. Basically it means changing the physical shape without changing the spirit of what it is. So the words may be different, or how they frame things may be different, but it's still the same sentiment.
Yeah. And why did it take so long to tell the story? And it's fascinating to read about how you were sleeping in churches on pews and the basement of like tattoo parlors to make this story. I mean, it sounds like you just were essentially using every last dime you had to tell this story because you knew it just needed to be told. And even almost, it says here that to the point where I was all but certain I would fail.
Oh yeah, but I mean that's, when you're burning through cash, like hemorrhaging money, like, and it's not cheap. Like shooting this stuff is not cheap, and it's almost like I stupidly picked the worst project you could pick for someone who doesn't have any money, because you're like, oh no, you've got to go out and shoot 40, 50 interviews and get all these people. This isn't like a documentary. You only need one person to tell the story. This isn't The Fog of War, where you only need Robert McNamara to tell the story. It's all the other pictures do the rest. No, I literally picked a story where every person had a small piece of the puzzle. And
they were all over the country.
They were all over.
So you drove all over the country to interview these people.
Yeah, I drove cross country like 3 times. It was like no, I'm not saying like once across. I mean, cross country meaning I went there and then went back, and I did there and then went back, and then went there and then went back, like just from place to place to place. But like,
and this whole time were people like, Nick, are you crazy? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you?
It was an odd mixture of stuff, because I remember like I tried to get somebody to do this with me. I tried, and I sent it out to about 6 or 7 people who I was like, you'd be really good. We should work on this together. And they would go, yeah, sure. And then they would get the document that I would send them with everything, and they would go, no thanks. And they would just say no. And they would all back out, and I never asked them why, but like they would just back out. And so it was every single time it would fall back to me again, and I go, okay, well, it's back to me again. And I was very lucky to get Dr. Robert Emmons from Rutgers University, in Camden, New Jersey. So he was very helpful, and he helped me for about a month or two in 2016 and 17. So he helped me kind of in a producerial role. But outside of that, most people were like, "Why are you making a story about a crazy lady with a 3-wheeled yellow car?" And I'd be like, "Because it's the greatest." And I would just be like, what else do I need? Like, it's the greatest. Like, and that's coming from me who doesn't care about anything. So for me, I'm like, yeah, I love it. Like, it's because it's an amazing subculture, and it fits me to be like, well, if I wasn't Nick, would I be a trans woman with a 3-wheeled yellow car? I'd be like, maybe. Like, would I be a person who decided that like I was gonna make a 3-wheeled? Yeah, probably. Would I be outlandish like Liz Carmichael? Would I be, as you know, we make stuff, I think, in a sense it's aspirational.
Yeah.
I think like I see a lot in Liz Carmichael that like I think there's a courage and a fearlessness, and I also think there's an audacity, and there's a level of bravery to go out there, I think, and not just with a 3-wheel car, but to be yourself and to be Liz Carmichael. And I think I work aspirationally. Like I make projects about stuff that I know that are like, oh, that'd be cool to see myself maybe in that light, or think about things differently, or it's some people, they write to heal trauma, or they do this, and it's like I look at the future to be like, what, where's the next, if I can be, if I can take 1% of who Liz Carmichael was and apply it to my own life, then that process is worth it.
Yeah, I think why so many people followed her was because she had such a gift for creating certainty that it was going to work, even in the face of none of that.
Yeah.
Like, even when they were starting to run out of money, and it was just like they all just believed in her. And whenever she was around, she just emanated this energy of, this is going to happen, this is going to work, and everyone just followed that. And that's what is so contagious about certainty, where if you really believe in something and you care about it enough, then it doesn't matter what it is. Like you, I mean, the fact that you chose this project and you've been so committed to making this happen, you then got the Duplass brothers enrolled in this vision of this whole thing. So tell us a little bit about that. What was that process like?
I mean, that doesn't get done without our producers, Alan Bain and Andre Gaines. Like, I reached out because at this point, I think I can't remember, 6, 7, 8 years in. And at that point, I knew I needed a producer because I was like starting to get tired. And I remember feeling like it was when people started to die in a much more rapid succession that I was like, okay, what you can't do is get this many years in and then everyone is dead and you have an unfinished project. And I remember thinking, we got to escalate this timeline because this is, I can feel there's a red light blinking, and it's like there's an alert button, and it's like you got to act. So I remember I reached out. I had this list of producers. I think I got it from No Film School. There's a list of producers of some of the 50 best indie producers, and I put it aside in 2011. And I remember I was like, all right, time to use that list. But I reached out and I looked to see who was the best fit. And then I looked out and I saw Alan Bain's name, and I saw that he was an indie producer as well, and he's from the East Coast. And there were a couple different things project-wise. I was like, okay, this seems like it might be a fit. So I reached out to him, and what I did was I put together a budget. I hired a line producer, but this is beforehand. I spent a month beforehand. I said I hired a line producer to get 2 budgets for post-production and production. And then once I got the budgets, I put together a 25-page document that explained what I had access to and how far along I was on the project. And then once I did that, which included like proposals for everything, who contacts I have with museums, and like we possibly have distribution here and there, and so all this different stuff. And then kind of the breaks that we had made. So I had that, and then I spent 3 weeks cutting together a trailer. And so, I'm not an amazing editor, but I can fool somebody. So I did. So I ended up cutting it. I spent 3 weeks cutting together the trailer, and then I sent all that stuff to Alan. And I was like, here's what I have. Here's what's going on. Like, I need a producer to put this together. And I basically was like, living in New Hampshire at the time. And then out of the people, I think the 25 people that I sent emails to, Alan was the only one that wrote me back. And Alan was like, this is interesting. We should work on this. And he was like, well, he said, will you meet with me? First he said, will you meet with me? And I said, I'm not in Los Angeles. I just got back from Los Angeles from shooting stuff. And then I said, so I'm not going to be there. And he said, well, I'm going to be in Western Mass. in a little bit, will you meet me? And so we went to lunch. And then after that, he had this whole thing about wanting to meet with somebody for lunch first before he ever commits to a project. So he was like, I want to meet with you for lunch first. And then we met, and I told him what I had and what was going on. And then at the end, he said, I think we might be able to put something together here. And then he called his producing partner, Andre Gaines, and Andre was a documentary director, among other things. He's also a scripted producer, but he was putting together his own documentaries. And so the two of us spent a year and a half putting this kind of proposal together, cutting together a sizzle reel, like just working on it piece by piece. And then I ended up moving back to Los Angeles, I think in July or August of 2018, and with the intent of knowing that we would go out and try and pitch it to people. And they asked me who were your first picks. And once I saw the Wild Wild Country trailer, I think that was in March of 2018. And I saw it and I was like, that's us. And I immediately was like, this is us. And so when I told him, I said, it's Duplass. Like Duplass Brothers Productions is my first choice. And among other reasons, one of my only. And it was because they mentor first-time directors, like the Wild Wild Country. There's a couple other things too, which is like they produced some of my favorite movies, which wasn't until I was going through their catalog and I was like, they really produced some of my favorite movies. And I thought like Tangerine and Safety Not Guaranteed, and like they're earnest.
And Tangerine was all shot on iPhones.
Right? Yeah, I talk about Tangerine as like my business model of being like, I'm gonna shoot something like Tangerine. It's like it's only gonna cost a couple $100,000. Like, and I remember thinking like I would talk about that in that movie incessantly because I was so convinced. I was like, yeah, Tangerine's amazing. Like, because that to me was the model of how you would shoot something to kind of rise up. I think like Sean Baker did an incredible job at that movie. But like, but anyway, yeah. So there were a lot of different things, and I just thought, I always need 4 reasons to do something at any given time. And the fourth one's always the hardest reason to come up with. I think 3 is easy, but the fourth one's the hardest. And I easily put more than 4 reasons together for Duplass, and I was like, that to me is it. Like, if that was my pick. And so we were very, very fortunate in the sense that Andre had the same agent as Mark and Jay Duplass. So I sent a letter to them. I wrote a letter to Mark and Jay, and I said, you guys have pretty much been the reason that I have used all the tactics I have, is because I've learned mostly everything from you guys of like, just use whatever you can, just shoot on this and shoot on that. Yeah. Like they shot on a DVX and, they all the stories and whatever, but everything was like all the cameras that we shot on. It was always like, just keep shooting, and building momentum and keep building momentum until you hit a critical mass. And so that's what it was like shooting. And so, but a lot of that was inspired by them. And so that's what I put in the letter. It was basically saying like, you really inspired me. Like, and I said like, let's bring this thing home. Yeah. And it was like, we I think we come from the same kind of place. Of like,
point, then did they then call you and say, okay, yep, let's meet?
So they I think responded the next day and asked for a meeting, and the meeting was the next week. And I think I spent 12 to 14 hours at a desk for that entire week. It was my birthday the day before, and so I was like, you want to go out? I was like, get away from me. And I remember there was at one point it was like midnight. I had like flashcards and I was practicing. I was writing down answers to everything. I was practicing. And then I remember at one point this lunatic, because I was living in this not great house, a reformed trap house south of downtown I was living in, and this lunatic drove into the telephone pole and knocked out the power, and it was like boom, and like an explosion, and it was like right outside our house, and it was like sparks were shooting into the street. My roommate ran. I was like, holy shit. And he like ran. I was like, what the fuck? And he ran around the living room. And I immediately just turned on the phone and turned on the flashlight app on my phone. It was like, and he's like running behind me like, oh, and I'm just like, because I'm just like, can't even think. I'm like, no. Every second matters. Every second. I can't even stop to look at what some lunatic did because I have to do this. Yeah. And that was it. Was just like, this is the week. It was like, because that was, to me, it was always, that was always my first, they were always my first pick. Because that was,
just to set the context here, because I've never actually been on a pitch meeting. Sure. I mean, this is like a major job interview in a sense where you are taking what you have, your idea. So, you've got the idea and you go into these meetings such as, meeting with either production companies or HBO or Netflix, or you've got to go in, you've got to pitch your vision for this story. So how do you prepare for something like that? So like, what were the note cards? What do you think that they were going to ask that you didn't know already? I mean, it's like you were cramming for a final exam. What was it that was like that you were preparing for?
Immediately, my first two reactions are to say, one, you have to have a complete narrative. Like your pitch has to be a complete narrative of that story. So like I was prepared for a pitch, and what Alan and Andre did was they prepared me for that. Like, so we sat in a conference room, and we went over the main plot points of the story, and I pulled about 30 different items from archives that I had. I call it archives. It's just a giant duffel bag, not everything. But I had, and I pulled stuff. I had magazines. I had pictures of Liz. We even brought the model of the car, which was like this. It was a small, I can't even describe it. It was like we'll move on. But anyway, it's a small model of the car that we found in someone's attic in Oklahoma. And I had it. And so it was things like the model and the magazines, and like, I want to create an image. I want to create the feeling of what this project is and the people involved. And I think it's like an art exhibit. I want to show up, and like I had the poster of Liz with her over the 405 freeway. Like, I had that. I had the car. I had the magazines. Like, so when I'm talking, I want there to be an understanding that like you are connecting on an emotional level to what this is. I also think it's important too to see that like the work is there, and I think that those items represent the work, represent the 10 years, which is. I think it's very telling. I didn't learn this till later, but because Jay had talked about it in one of the interviews, saying that like, he called Zachary because he had never heard of Liz Carmichael, and Zachary, who is probably one of the most knowledgeable trans or LGBT people in the community, to say like Zachary didn't know who Elizabeth Carmichael was, and none of the people that she knew who Liz Carmichael was. So the fact, I think what's really important is like walking into a meeting and be like, well, you had no idea. Conversely, I'm holding a 3-wheel model and have an original poster here, and I'm holding, these documents. And I think it shows that like, it's the difference between me walking in with nothing and me going, no, I went to a guy's attic in Oklahoma and pulled this 3-wheel, model out, this resin model. And so there's that, and that's the first part. And the other part too is like, it's going to sound completely crazy, but I took computer paper, and for an entire week, I wrote down the answer to every question I thought they might ask me. Like I had pages and pages and pages and pages where they would be like, what about this? And I would just write down, what about this? And I would instinctually write the answer as fast as I could.
That's a great exercise.
And I would just do that. And I did it to a level that you would probably see in horror movies where somebody writes on the walls and stuff. I was like, because all that mattered to me was that one meeting.
Yeah.
That was it. It was like 10 years came down to 30 minutes, and that was it. And it was like, you have to understand that, like, you have to have, I think, foresight too, to understand that like the options are only going to get worse. Like for me, the people who I wanted to do this is Duplass, because their background, their mentor, like all the things I just mentioned, but like there's nobody who's going to line up as well as that lines up. And you have to understand that, and understand that there's kind of a cliff there. Like it's the options only get worse, like in the sense where there's people who are less compatible with you, or compatible in ways that may not be compatible for you. That may be compatible for the project, or maybe compatible for you, but aren't compatible for both you and the project. And to me, it was both. It was both in spades. And so I was like, this helps in many directions all at once. It doesn't just help one or the other. So understanding that's why I went crazy. Like writing all that stuff down was because.
And were you nervous going into that meeting, or did you feel after doing all that work that you felt confident?
Oh no. Yeah, I not only did I practice that pitch with the note cards over and over again, but I called people and I would time the pitch. And I was like, this has to be done in under 5 minutes. And I would just be like, and I would say, what am I at? And then my friend would be like, 3.5 minutes. And I would be like, I got to get it down to 3 minutes. I got to get down. And I'd be like, what's the 5-minute version? What's the 3-minute version? Like, and I would just be prepared to cut out things then, so there was that. I view everything kind of as a triangle. So for me, it was like the note cards, the computer paper, and then calling people. And I had a good friend who's a biologist, and he's always available nights. So I was like, hey, I need your help. And he's a good buddy of mine. I've known him for like almost 30 years. And so he would just get on the phone and listen and be like, that was 3.5 minutes. This was, and so for that week, he would just work with me, and I would just try to get it down. And so I walked in there knowing that, like, I really felt that way, that I would say to myself, I don't know, I don't read a lot of self-help books or anything, but I would say to myself, you are a bullet train. You are a force of nature. You are a bullet train. You are a force of nature. And that's all I said all week. And I remember saying to myself, I didn't say this out loud, but I said, they're going to feel me before I walk in the room.
Yes. Because
you're going to feel my energy.
Yes.
And you're going to feel like there's an aftershock. Like when I walk in, you're going to feel different. And I remember thinking, like, because I just thought you're not going to stop me. Like this is because I knew that this represented the best partnership that you could have. And, it was really important to be steely-eyed. And, I may have been a person who was fearful at the beginning of that week, but not by the end, because I knew that I had to be obsessive over, because it's a level you can only get to if you've done the work. Right. Because, there was a point now, I use this as a small example, but like I was, we were, Lucas, our cameraman, and we left Elko, Nevada at 5 a.m. and we had to get into Boulder, Colorado at like, I think 8 o'clock at night, or there were 7, and the interview was at 8. And we had no location, and it started snowing, and we were like falling in the snow, trying to grab equipment to pull it into this hotel. And we were running from room to room, being like, "Can we use this?" And they're like, "No." Like, "Can we use this?" They're like, "No." And then we ran to the desk, and we were like, "Can we use this?" And the guy says, "Well, there's a jazzercise class getting out in about 20 minutes. You could use the upstairs bar." And we were like, "Yes!" And I remember thinking, if I'm not there in 2016 or 17, like, it doesn't motivate me the way it does sitting in that chair. Like, I was sitting at that desk with roommates walking by all the time doing stuff, because I didn't have my own desk. I had a really small room with boxes all around me. Like, that's how small the room was. It was a twin bed with boxes around me. I had one desk that was communal. So I'm saying is like, you don't get from Elko, Nevada to there without knowing that, like, I ain't going back to Elko, Nevada. Yeah. Like, it's easier if you haven't put in the time to go, well, I don't know if I should do all this work. I should do stuff. Like, no, I'm not sleeping in Elko, Nevada ever again.
So would you say you're more motivated, more creative when you are uncomfortable rather than comfortable? Like when you've got all the luxuries and like, feeling like you've got the nice bed to sleep in. Because I feel like when my back is against the wall and we're like, because I've been in that situation where the sun is coming up and we've got to get that shot in, in 4 minutes. Otherwise, we're gonna lose the day. Where there's that frantic, just like we got to get it done. I feel like that's when I'm the most creative in situations like that.
Yeah, I think I see kind of two answers to it. The first part is like, I think it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is like, if you're the difference between you having to get a paycheck, like, to you having to live, like, if the necessity, if it comes down to you having to live, like, and you're like, someone's like, be creative, and you're like, I don't have any money, like I'm trying to survive right now. Yeah. I would say you much rather be comfortable. There's two levels, which is if you fulfilled your level, if you have fulfilled the survival aspect of your life, which is like, I could fall in the snow in Boulder, Colorado, because I knew I still had a home to go back to. Like, I knew I still had a room that I was still renting out. Like, I could still, that was taken care of. But like, I would say, like, when people who are like, the people who say like, quit your day job, just go pursue your creative. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. That's crazy. Yeah. Like, don't put an immense amount of stress on yourself for creativity to like survive. But as a purely creative, within the confines of being a purely creative operation, like a film, I've got to get the shot. This has to get done. I've got to find a location. Boulder, Colorado. At the end of the day, like, you have that determination. It's like, but it's nothing like trying to survive. So I would say that if you're trying to survive, you want to be comfortable But if it's purely in the operation of like you doing something creative, then yeah, totally. I'd rather be uncomfortable because the confines are what are going to free you. Like to be like, well, this is all I have. These are all the things I have.
Yeah.
You know, and you always, I think there's a materialistic aspect of us that's always like, well, I need more. I need more stuff. You're like, no, you don't. You need less. Like you will get better as you understand that you need less. So as I think like the less you need, and the more you can operate with less. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, I think about how there's an interview in this doc that's like that I shot with a broken still camera and construction lights from Home Depot. That's Dick Carlson's interview. Like, and it was shot with construction lights I bought for $35 and a camera, which someone said to me, I think this is broken and the screen doesn't work, but you can use it. And I remember I was like, sucker. And I took it. And then I remember the monitor didn't even work. And I had to adjust it without looking because you couldn't see. So I was like, I think this is the center of the frame. And that was like, and so when I think about that, it was like that stuff actually made me better, like in a sense. Like those challenges will make you better because as you get better, the equipment gets better. Like the more you work, I use the Louis Armstrong thing all the time. That example from like Louis Armstrong, which is he found a broken cornet in the trash and then played that cornet for like the first 5 or 7 years.
Really?
And then ended up mastering a broken cornet, and then he moved up.
Wow.
And he moved up to the trumpet. So like he started with a broken cornet and he became Satchmo. Like so as far as I'm concerned, like I think that's the best example anybody can give you. You can just point and go Satchmo, and people will get it that like that guy became a master of his music. Like, and he started with a broken instrument. And I think that like, I think in a sense it's like, I think there's something to that, which is like you just have to overcome yourself. Yourself is the biggest obstacle. And it's like I do have to have equipment, but I also had to like steal stuff from people. And I was very fortunate to have a friend who lent me a camera like every now and then. You know, so it was like, so there's still, I think you can find a community though, and kind of build that community was built over the previous 7 or 8 years. So, but I do think as you get better, the equipment gets better. And like, and as you get there, it's like I said, we shot all this stuff on all these different cameras, you know, but at the end of the day, the story is what matters.
Yep.
You know, and that's what matters. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because we were talking a little bit about before the interview, we were talking about the artistry of the business and then the business side of the business. And, you know, as much as you may have passion for something, we were talking about how we know people who are passionate about their project and they've spent years on writing something or working on something. And then there's also the business practical aspect of it all where, and you mentioned the Brene Brown quote, which is, what was that one again?
Oh God, I don't remember.
It's comfort or
solutions. Oh, do you want comfort or solutions?
Yeah. And it's true. It's like, it's like, do you want to be comfortable? Do you want to just do something because you're passionate about it? Or if you really truly want to create this and make it successful, then you're going to have to seek out some honest feedback. And that's not always easy. Some people don't always want honest feedback, and people sometimes have scripts and stories that they want to run by me. And it kind of breaks my heart sometimes when I know if someone has put so much time and energy into writing the script, and I just know that it is nowhere near where it needs to be in order to be presented to like a producer or a studio. And so what I ask is, do you want my honest opinion, or do you just want to like, is this just something that you did for fun and you just want me to tell you like, great job? Or do you want actual critical feedback to make it better? And I think that's a very important part of what we do, because I'm sure you know a lot of people who are maybe super talented at what they do, but they just don't look at it from the business side of it, of where do I want to take this and where do I see this piece of content living, like what network and with what people. And I think that's why what defines you or has allowed you to be as successful as you are is that you really are able to, you're aware of both aspects of what it takes to be successful in this business.
I think, I mean, it's well said. it's hard to put into terms, but I think the best way to describe it is that like I read a lot of business books, like about a lot of companies. Like that's
Hey,
just
Nick, by the way, I think your microphone is like scratching.
oh,
Like,
not bad. Let me move this.
Yeah,
Is
cool.
that better at all?
I think so. Yeah, thanks.
Move this out. All right, but yeah, so I read a lot of business books. I think like the main ones that come to mind are like Coca-Cola, Budweiser, like Microsoft. I just read this gigantic book about IBM in the 80s. But like, I read about all these companies because I think what they do and the decisions they make are crucially important. And so when I think about this stuff, one of the things that comes to mind immediately is like that email to Alan, which was like the stuff he responded to and the stuff that's in there is like, that was put together because I have friends who have businesses and I talk to them all the time about their business models and like what they do and their execution. And I just went, well, I'll just do what they did. And I just like put together an actual proposal, like a whole 25-page proposal with a trailer, in budgets to be like, this is for real. Like, I am real. This is real. Like, here's what I'm doing. And I put real money behind hiring line producers, like behind hiring that line producer. That's what it did to be like, no, this is going to be a real budget. Like when you see it, you're going to be like, yeah, this is a real budget. And we're going to try and raise the money here. Like, this is what we're going to try and do. And so I think that there's that aspect of it. And there's also the aspect too, that like your entrepreneurial skills are going to weave throughout this entire process. Like when I was putting together Liz Carmichael's story, I'm not without the idea that like, that when I looked at it, I was like, this isn't just an incredible story, but like it fits car culture. It's a true crime story. So it's for people who love true crime, who love cars, which by the way, there's a ton of people in car culture, like who love automobiles. So it's not just an automobile story or a true crime story, but it's also about Liz, who's an incredible trans woman. So it's an LGBT story as well. And it's not just that, but it's also an incredible story about an entrepreneur. And so for me, it's like, it's a business story. And so it's like, so there's all these different worlds, and there's this, we live in a world of intellectual property where like everything has to have a built-in base to it. And so when I was looking at it, I was like, this isn't just an amazing story that no one's covered, but it fits all these different things. So I know that it will have legs because outside of my interest in it, I know that it will interest all these other subgroups of people. So it has a built-in base to it. So there's that. So that was another aspect to it. So being able to like have a business model in your head is so important. Like I had a friend who I was going on a hike with in 2016 or 17, and I was like in New Hampshire at the time. And I said, yeah, I'm putting together this documentary. And the guy says to me, and I said, oh, the cut's like 4 hours long right now or something like that. He says to me, just release it on YouTube. And I was like, why would I do that?
Why? Yeah.
And I just said, why would I do that? Like, and I remember I felt so just
do you realize what I just did for the past 10 years of my life? Like,
yeah, it's this, it's this idea. And the thing is like that person doesn't want to make stuff. They don't want to enjoy the business aspect of it. And they don't want to participate in the business aspect of it. They want to make art, and like that's fine. It's like I want to make art too, but like I also want to make money making art. And like so I think there's an aspect to it that like that has to be taken into account. And like I told Liz a story because she was an incredible character. She was an incredible anti-hero. It fit. Again, it fit. I told you I always need 4 reasons to do something. So for me, it wasn't just that she was an incredible anti-hero or a trans woman, or it was a car culture, it was a true crime story or a tragedy, but like it also fit the things that I'm interested in. So I got something fulfilling out of it. Also, the business model was there for me to be like, it will find interest with these people. Like this story will be interesting to all these people because it's controversial. It raises too many questions within all these subgroups, and word of mouth is still the strongest form of advertising. So you will have all these people talking about it, and it will. And the fact that I would see on message boards endless conversations, like people like, "Oh, did you ever hear the story of Elizabeth Carmichael?" You would just see it on message boards that have nothing to do with Elizabeth Carmichael. You would just be like, "Have you ever heard the story of Elizabeth Carmichael?" And the fact that all these different people post on there, I'm like, "There's clearly going to be people talking about this." Like, if I remember there's a point where I was like, I remember thinking business wise, there's no book, there's no movie. There's no documentary. There's no movie of the week. There's not even any short form content outside of this unsolved mysteries. I remember thinking, it doesn't even have to be good. It just has to be done. I remember thinking like, all you have to do is be the only person who gets it done. And and I'm not trying to diminish the process, but like, but I certainly was like, just get it done. Like that was so much of my motivation. It really took a big load off my back because I thought, A, you're the only one doing this story. You're the only one doing the story on Liz Carmichael. And you're the only one that has to get it done. And that's it. So I was like, I shot on every camera I could get because that was it. Was like, just get it done.
Yeah.
And I think and at the end of the day, I credit Alan Andre and Duplass Brothers Productions because they looked at my Frankenstein cut and went, well, obviously we need to reshoot this. And, but we went back and we reshot all the interviews, but it made that even better. Yeah. Because I had shot everything for all those years. So I knew everything. I was the only person who knew like the A to Z story of putting it together. So, and then later came on the collaboration with Zachary to help fill out Liz's life and make her wholehearted and three-dimensional. But but anyway, that whole point about the business model coming in was like, again, I thought to myself, I remember saying out loud, I can corner the market because I thought you could be the only guy with a Liz Carmichael documentary. Yeah. And I remember, and it wasn't until 7 years later or 8 years later, I learned that there was a competing documentary that started at the same time and was working, and we had just barely beaten them, So it was, again, it doesn't disprove my theory, but again, it speaks to the business model, which is I looked at it and went, there's no other property that exists in this space that has this. There's no other Liz Carmichael documentary, book, movie, TV movie, short form content that exists. Mm-hmm. This is it. Just be the guy who finishes it. And I remember thinking, even if it gets picked up like a great distribution company like Dog Wolf or something, like you could still put this together. I've seen documentaries that are shot poorly due to limited budgets, but they are great. And I remember thinking it'll just be an independent documentary. I never had any idea like that it was going to get this far. It was a wing and a prayer with a little love and luck, right? You hope that you get there, but but at the end of the day, again, if you think about the source of that idea, it was I can corner the market because I've got a car culture, true crime, LGBT tragedy that's rags to riches and suits the American dream. It's a number of different data points for me, and so that was, again, I speak to that. I speak to all the process going through the email I sent to Alan. Like, you have to act as a business person, and you have to have incredible characters and incredible worlds that they inhabit. And so, like, that's all I do is I spend my time reading books, just looking for characters and stories. I comb through nonfiction, just looking for incredible stories and characters that I can go, well, what's next? What's the next thing that I can pull? And stuff like that, because I want to tell those stories, but I want to tell stories nobody's told, and you have to dig deep for that stuff. Yeah.
Dude, I love your passion, and I've got some questions from my audience. One of my questions here is from Miss Amy Bray. She's asking, what is the best piece of advice you've received from a mentor that has helped you during your toughest hurdles?
I presume, I can only assume they mean my hurdles as a filmmaker, but as when you say mentor.
Or life.
And life.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I think is probably you are not your work. I think that we live in a place where we live in America, which is a highly capitalistic, hyper-capitalistic place. Yeah. Where you are defined by what you do. Most conversations start with, what do you do? Because that determines how people value you or how much value they place upon you. And so that was, I think, the biggest thing was getting all this way and then going through all the obstacles we went through to get it done, only to walk away with the idea where it's like, this doesn't define you. It defined me, I think, for many years because it was the only thing I spent any money on. Yeah. It was, for reference or for context, I was lying in a twin bed watching movies on a 7.5-inch iPad Mini 4, and that's what I did every night. I would watch, and I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. Like, I worked 2 jobs. I worked 9 to 5, and then I would come home and I worked 5 to whatever in the morning, and then I would sleep and then get up and do it again. Like, so I just, all I did was work on the documentary. So that defined me. Everything I owned, everything I was, every talking point I had about my life was about that documentary because of how insane it was to try to put it all together. So that was what defined me.
And it says here you drove Lyft for 80 hours a week for 6 months to pay off the debt from filming.
Yeah, that was that part of it. That was not only was that exhausting, but I really feel like that did did some damage where I was like, I was so tired. And then after it was over, I still had to drive back to California. So I had to make enough money to pay off the debt. Then I had to make more money to be able to save up to move back to California. So I had to keep on that schedule. And I mean, there were times where, I mean, that 12, 14-hour days where you also have to drive an hour into Boston and an hour out of Boston. So you have to add that to the 14 hours. So you would just sleep, get up, do it again, sleep, get up, do it again. And you just keep doing it and doing it. And it's exhausting. But again, it speaks to like the level of work you have to put in when you don't have the money. And you keep feeding this animal. And like they say in the documentary, this thing's a beast. And if you don't give it blood, this thing's going to die. And that's the way it is you just got to keep pumping money into it. But like I said,
you believed in the reason why you were doing all of this. And for everyone out there who has a dream of doing something, and because people do struggle and I just remember going to acting class for, years without working, but I was so attached to this vision of, I just want to be on a professional set. I want to be a professional actor. That's what made me get up and do everything that I knew I needed to do in order to get there. So you just I would imagine, had such a conviction that this is the story you wanted to tell. And whether it was on HBO or whether it was, just like you said, as an independent documentary, would you say that is what allowed you to just drive that lift for 80 hours a week and do everything else that it took to get this thing made and produced and now put onto one of the biggest networks out there?
I think you can consider it multifactorial. I certainly think that's about 60 to 70% of it. It's really just like the drive, but also too, it was a really important inflection point for me, because I was coming off of something that years ago had happened that, you carry trauma on you, I think, still, of stuff. It's not just scars. Scars I think are very surface level, but I think there's trauma underneath those scars. That's stuff that stays with you over the years. And there was something that happened years ago, and it just kind of shifted the course of my life. And that stuff was kind of still hanging with me, I think, a couple years later, despite the fact I thought I was over it. And I realized I really wasn't over it. And that was part of the decision to make, to go back to New Hampshire as well. Was just like, I'm going to go back. I'm going to edit this short film, finish it. Right. It's like, and meanwhile, it's like, keep working on the documentary. And so as I'm working on the documentary, it's like, it was really a feeling of like, I'm just going to let this thing go where it goes. And that's it. And we'll see what happens with it. Because I remember the first 5 years, I couldn't scratch the surface of this thing for the first 5 years. There's a reason why nobody had heard of Liz Carmichael, because almost nothing existed. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life, was calling people, tracking down records, calling billboard companies, bail bond companies, like making phone calls, sending thousands of letters, only to seemingly get nowhere for the first 6 years, and to think nothing exists. And there was a point where I was like, I'm just going to, 2015 or 16, where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to keep going on this thing, because I can't, you got to catch a break. If this is 40 plus years, you got to catch a break on this. And I've told this story to Zachary, and Zachary's heard this story over and over, but like this eBay auction popped up, and that eBay auction was from one of the reporters who covered Liz from beginning to end, and had an entire scrapbook of the trial, because there were no court documents. Wow. There were no trial transcripts. And this guy scrapbooked the entire trial. And not only that, but he had tons of photos. He had a manuscript. Like it was everything. Amazing. And it like landed in my lap, and it changed the course of the documentary, because I went back.
You energetically manifested that?
I don't know. I don't know if I want to go that far. You know what? Sure. You know what? Yeah, screw it. Let's do it. You know what? Yes, I did. Yes, I did manifest that. And I felt it was only through me manifesting that occurred. I will take sole credit for that eBay auction occurred. But yeah, no, it's, I don't know, you can call it kismet or providence, but that stuff popped up a week before I was going on the road trip, which I thought was going to be the last road trip I went on. It was a purely exploratory trip, and I pretty much considered the project over at that point, after that trip was going to be over, because I thought I wasn't going to make any headway. Yeah. And so right a week before that trip, that eBay auction popped up, and then we ended up at the museum the same day that that the owner was there. And they were like, the owner's here and he's never here. And I ran right up to him. I was like, buy this eBay auction. And I ran up to him, and to their credit, they bought it for us like an hour later, and they gave it to us, and they gave us everything. And so that changed everything. So I'm saying is that, like, you pursue a project, but, like, don't turn yourself off to the world that, like, you're going to go through this stuff. And it's your life is weaving in and out of this. If you're a filmmaker, your life is going to weave in and out of the projects that you make. And there were points where I was up and I was down, and things were good and things were bad. Like, and I just kept going because I knew that this was going to be the most important project I ever worked on. And even then, when I found out I had competitors in year 7 or 8, it just made me work harder because I think that person was in Ireland, and I was like, "You're not going to beat me on my home turf." And I remember thinking, like, I live here. You're not going to beat me. Like, and I just worked harder because I'm a competitive, fierce person. And I was like, not going to happen.
And has your life changed since this has come out, and since now your relationship with HBO? I mean, are you having offers now? Do you have projects coming up? Like, how has your life changed?
I've had a few offers, but the biggest thing is the trajectory change, which is that, like, I made this documentary because it really mattered. Like, it was really important, and it was really important to me. It was really important I think, on a philosophical level. It was really important on an emotional level to do this and get it done, because there were things in my life that, like, my ex was very, you can call it motivational, or you can call it staring down the barrel of a gun, when your ex is looking at you basically be like, if you don't finish this, you're never going to finish anything in your life. And I remember being like, and I was just like, man, that's probably true. And I remember thinking, she was the one who was like, you got to do this. Like, and I remember saying, I can't scratch the goddamn surface of this thing. And she's over here being like, just get it done. Just go do it. And I remember being like, I'm a fiscally responsible person. So I'm not going to throw good money after bad, like, why am I going to go on this trip? And she was like, just go on the trip. You never know what's going to happen. And so you're going to have obstacles, and you're going to have, she just told me the truth. She's not going to lie to me. She's very blunt. And that's, I'm very blessed and privileged to have always been the nature of our relationship together. She was never lie to me at all about anything. She's always straightforward. But but my ex and I crossed paths at that time. And like I'm saying, it's like, you go through this process for 5 years and you think, well, okay, well, I'm not going to get anywhere with it. And then your ex, you can reach the riot act, and suddenly you're going on this trip, and then you catch a break, and then all this good stuff happens. But then suddenly people start dying a year and a half later, and you're like, oh my God, people might die. Like, it's never going to be a straight trajectory, you know? But again, I made this project, to go back to your original questions. I made this because it was important, because it mattered. It mattered emotionally, to matter philosophically, to matter. It mattered because I knew that this was the closest to my heart a project had been in a while. And, like, I don't make documentaries. I have no idea. Like, I had no idea how to make a documentary. I was just like, just go shoot it. Like, what's a documentary with people in front of a camera, like, talking about it, and the rest is archival, right? Like, you figure it out as you go. And so I was doing that to not only work my way up my own trajectory, but it mattered for a million different reasons. And at the end of the day, the trajectory I want to get to is, like, I don't want to make documentaries. Like, this was the one. Yeah. This was the one I wanted to make. And so making that choice to do it was a really important choice for my life. But it also was a choice of finality, which is that, like, I don't want to do this again. And because it was really, I'll just say, difficult. And leave it at that. But, like, it was an incredibly challenging process that I don't want to go through again. And you could say, well, you don't have to go through it again. But, like, I don't want to. I have battle wounds from this that, like, I'm good. So for me, the biggest thing in terms of my trajectory is, like, yes, I've had a few offers, but I don't want to make documentaries. So it's kind of out of the question. So I have a manager, and I'm going to have an agent soon. And, like, so there's that. And, like, but the things I'm interested in is screenwriting. And so that's what I've been doing, is writing a feature script, because that's where I want to be. Comedy is what I want to do. Like, writing scripted features and directing scripted features is what I want to do. Okay. And that's where my interest lies. I have no other interest. And this was, to me, an exception because it needed to be done. It needed to be done for me. It needed to be done for Liz. And I think, in a sense, like, I don't care if it's sappy or not, but I think we kind of lifted each other up. I think we were two people kind of alone in the world who were kind of, I think we've forgotten ourselves, or had been forgotten. And then we just kind of lifted each other up, I think. And it was, each day I would learn more about her, and through her I would learn more about myself. And it forces you into an introspection. And that was an amazing experience. But, I get more joy and satisfaction out of sitting alone at a desk, writing, and then going off to go shoot it, and then prepping for a year, And that's what fascinates and interests me. So that's where I am. That's the script I'm doing now, and that's where I want to be.
That's awesome, Nick. That's awesome, man. I love your passion. I love your conviction. And just a couple more questions here.
Yeah, sure.
Miss Sharon Kalma, she has a really good question here. She asks, what legacy do you want to leave?
I was going to say to die an unknown, but I was going to flip it on its head. It's legacy do I want to leave? I'm going to assume this is about the project, or is this just in life again?
I'm saying life.
I don't know. I think just be weird. That's really it. Every person I know is normal. It's pretty forgettable. And I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it's just like, I'm a firm believer in the Andy Kaufman school of people, which is that like nothing matters. Just be crazy, be weird. Like make every day interesting, because every day is just, boring. I mean, somebody asked me how today was. I said it was the greatest day of my life because I saw a cloud that looked cool, and they were like really thrown by it. And I was like, well, if you don't get it, you don't get it, man. But like, I don't know. I just think there's like that ability to make something, I think, out of nothing. I think what really matters is your legacy is to yourself. I think what matters is just being better every day. That's really it. It's like the only question you should really ask yourself is, am I better today than I was yesterday? And that's it.
Yeah.
Because
that's awesome.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, it's the time of our show where we want to ask what your particular pick six is. Brought to you by Particular. And the first question is, what is your favorite film of all time?
Oh,
there it is. I wasn't sure if I was gonna.
For once, I didn't have to talk during this. Yeah, no, that's it.
So what do you love so much about Shawshank?
That movie is the reason I became a filmmaker. That is the movie that actually saved my life.
Really?
And it might be in those pages that you're reading off of my profile, but it's years ago when I didn't know what I wanted to do, and it went through some really bad times and had some really bad thoughts, and I was like 18 at the time, and it was like I was living in Maine at a prep school, and it was like snowing. It was snowing like crazy, and it was like just a bad place to be. And I remember I didn't feel like I had any options in life, and I was thinking about prematurely ending mine, and then that was the day I saw this movie. And as you know, he's a prisoner in Maine, and he thinks about ending his life at the end of the movie. And I don't think you could stamp a more direct comparison to someone's life at that time. It just was the right movie at the right time, and that movie means something different to me. I feel like every few years that I watch it, it means more to me. I think because you realize how much people are prisoners of fear and how much they project fear onto people, because everyone has their own fears. And some people use it to make other people victims. And I think about even the speech from Red being like, hope is a dangerous thing. It's like hope can drive a man insane. And I think how many people in my life I've met who use fear as a weapon. Mm-hmm. And everything is about power dynamics. But I think about that. Fear can keep you prisoner. I think about that a lot. I think about how being utterly shameless and just enjoying your life and not playing the game.
Yeah,
I think is like those things. I don't know. The biggest thing I take away is how much fear defines people as you get older. That's the reason why that's my favorite movie.
Awesome. And what would you say is your favorite movie from when you were a kid?
Probably Darkman, the Sam Raimi movie.
Oh, I never saw that.
Oh yeah, it's called Darkman. It was Sam Raimi's first studio movie. I watched that movie a lot when I was a kid. I watched all the Darkman movies. The next two were like direct-to-video sequels, and I still own all three of them today.
What are they about?
Darkman is about so Sam Raimi couldn't get the rights to The Shadow, the pulp radio comic, so he couldn't get the rights to it, so he created his own superhero called Darkman, and it's about a scientist who creates he's a latex skin scientist, so he creates polymers, and basically this is already nerdy. And so what happens is like his girlfriend or wife, played by Frances McDormand, it's Liam Neeson who plays the title role of Darkman, and his wife or girlfriend, I can't remember, Frances McDormand, comes across some memorandum, and then he gets involved accidentally with the mob, and then they try to kill him, and then he's like disfigured, and so he basically it's a revenge movie where he takes the face, he creates a polymer that allows him to take the face of anybody for 99 minutes. So one by one, he hunts and kills every person that is responsible for destroying his life while he attempts to reunite with his girlfriend, and then ultimately realizes that he's become too tarnished of a person, but he's become a monster effectively on the inside because of what's happened, because of the accident, not so much on the outside, but he's become warped beyond all recognition, and he's like, nope, I am a monster, and they don't get back together anymore. And again, tragedy.
What's the point of redemption about the film? So he's going after all these people and killing them.
Yeah, I don't think there is redemption in that movie.
Just all revenge.
Yeah, no, it's all revenge. I don't think there's a positive note to be found. And then, but
this is preemptive to I will find you and I will kill you.
I mean, pretty much. I mean, that's a static revenge movie trope, but there's a lot of stuff I like about just the way stuff is shot. I mean, it's just like the early Sam Raimi. It's not just Darkman, but like Evil Dead. I watched Evil Dead a ton. I owned Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. I think that's one of the best movies. Like the stuff in. You ever see Evil Dead 2? There's the part in the cellar with the grandmother is so scary. That's okay. Don't worry. I would watch all the Evil Deads. Like I owned on VHS. I owned Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, and Darkman. I owned all of Sam Raimi's early movies because I thought they were such a great filmmaker. Like I love the way his stuff is shot. I love like the energy that he has, and he's also funny, but he's also can be really scary. Like there's just the part in the basement where Ash gets thrown in the basement, and they play the recording in the second movie is one of the scariest scenes, but it comes in a movie that's quite often funny. And so he has this perfect like sensibility to him that I think is kind of like absurdist, but also satirical, but he can also be horrifying. And so that's how I am.
I'd rather hear you talk about it than actually watching the film.
Wait, say that again?
I would much rather hear you talk about it than actually watching the real film.
Oh, don't tempt me. Don't threaten me with a good time, because I'll do it. But yeah, man, so the Sam Raimi movies I think stand out the most to me. The Evil Deads and Darkman, those are the ones that stand out.
Awesome. What about your favorite comedy?
My first reaction is to say Black Dynamite, the Michael J. White movie from 2009. It's Scott Sanders, I want to say. Scott Sanders directed it and wrote it, and it's Michael. I think I'm saying his name right. Michael J. White. Apologies if I didn't. He played Gamble in The Dark Knight. He's an incredible. I don't know why he's not a leading actor. He's fantastic, but he plays like this retired detective. It's like a send up of like Shaft, but it's not a 70s movie. It's not a 70s movie about a cop. It's a 70s movie about an actor playing a cop, but it doesn't make that clear. So there are times where the boom mic comes in a frame, and like so you like see bad stuff, or like he goes to punch a guy and one of the guys returns and slaps him, and he's like, "What the?" And then you just cut. It's a new guy, as if they fired him. Like it's an amazing movie. The script is like twice as long as the movie. I love that movie. There's a part where he's throwing I'm talking about he's coming in the room. He's like, we got to go to Kung Fu Island, and it's like a send up of Bruce Lee movies. And so he's like fighting this guy. He's fighting a guy named Fu Manchu, and he's like fighting him. And then all of a sudden this boomerang comes through the window. He's like, I threw that before I came in the room. And it's just like, it's really absurdist. And like, there's a lot of stuff I love about that movie. And he's like, the only other joke I remember is the part where he's walking down the street with a woman he's trying to court. And then she goes, "Oh, this is my daughter." And then he goes, and he's like, "What's your name?" He's like, "Hey, little girl, my name is Black Dynamite." And he goes, "My mama said my father's name is Black Dynamite." He goes, "Shush, little girl, there's a lot of people with that name around here."
I've never heard of this, and I'm absolutely going to be watching this.
You've got to watch it, man. That movie's so good. I hope it still has distribution somewhere, because I swear, that movie's so good. every time somebody asks me what my favorite comedy is, I always go back to that movie. I think, yeah.
Yeah, definitely will check it out. And what is your favorite movie that you're embarrassed to say you love? Although I don't think you probably get embarrassed about much.
No, I would consider myself pretty shameless in that regard. My happiness will always trump what anybody else feels about anything that I do or say. The biggest thing is probably Street Fighter.
Okay.
Street Fighter. I don't even know if I'm not embarrassed by it, but I think other people might be embarrassed by it. I watch it every year on my birthday, and it is the best. It's the best. I don't care what anybody says. It has some of the most quotable lines in human history. There are times I'll just do the impression of Jean-Claude Van Damme as Guile. I think that movie, I had the VHS when I was a kid, and I remember, this is embarrassing. This is an embarrassing part of this, which is that I once played the movie till the end because I used to rent it all the time at the video store, and I was the only guy who rented it, and I would rent it, and one time I left it on at the end, and the credits were rolling, and I left the room, and then all of a sudden I hear dialogue, and it was like, it's a line from the movie. It's like, one solar battery online, and I remember running back into the room, and be like, what the hell is this? And I ran back in, and it was a post-credit sequence. In this 1994 Street Fighter movie, there was a post-credit sequence, and I was like, and I saw it, and it was like Bison's supposed to be, spoiler alert, if there is a spoiler, it's almost 30 years, but it's a spoiler, but Bison is supposed to be dead, played by Raul Julia. He's supposed to be dead, but his glove punches up through the screen, and it was like, what would you like to do today, Bison? And it was like, and it just clicks a button that says world domination, and I remember it was like incredible. And I remember I saw this, and it was like, coming soon, Street Fighter 2 was like, and I was like, oh my God, Street Fighter 2 is coming. And I remember I would check the video store all the time. I was like, hey buddy, is that Street Fighter 2 out yet? And I would buy like comic book magazines to be like, I bet Street Fighter 2 is going to be in this. For years, I was waiting for a Street Fighter 2 that never came. And I was like, and it never happened. So that I'm embarrassed by, to think that for years I waited for a Street Fighter 2. But not the movie. The movie's amazing.
Well, I think it's time for you to make Street Fighter 2.
Yeah, I would love to bring everybody back. I know Jean-Claude Van Damme actually talked about it in 2008 or 9. He talked about getting everyone back to do Street Fighter 2, and I was like, oh my God, it's going to be the greatest. I was so excited, but I mean, I don't know if I could top the first one. I don't think I could. Also, it was a complete disaster in terms of the production. People were like high on coke and running through like Thailand brothels and stuff, and I was like, I don't know if I could deal with that. They had a very sordid production history. It's great to read about, not so much to live, I don't think. So, yeah, but I think I'm just happier owning the 4K 4K UK Blu-ray that I bought. Yeah.
Got it. And who would you say is your favorite actor or male character in a film?
Probably Sam Rockwell. I think Sam Rockwell is like, I think Sam Rockwell is like the Jack Nicholson of today. I think he's one of the best actors.
Do you have a favorite movie of his?
Probably my immediate reaction is to say The Green Mile. I think he's so good as like the prisoner. It's like a supporting part, but like he's incredible in it. And like I'm sure I'm blanking right now, but I swear every movie he's in.
He played a great George Bush too.
Yeah,
in Cheney. Yeah, he was amazing.
I mean, every movie he's ever in is fantastic. I would, man, I think he's incredible. And if not him, then if not him as a favorite actor, it's Mads Mikkelsen.
He's great.
He's so good. I think that like him and like I just think about Casino Royale, I think, right? He's in, and then it's that, and then the movie Another Round that just came out. I'm like, God, he's so good. But like, it's probably Sam Rockwell by a hair's breadth. Yeah,
love him. And finally, who's your favorite actress or female character?
Probably Tilda Swinton.
Really? Okay.
Interesting choices. I like people who take risks. I think of she played Orlando in that stage show, and then ultimately I think became a movie. But like that's the thing that stood out to me was Orlando was Tilda Swinton playing Orlando. It was like that was immediately said because there are really smart and fearless choices that like Tilda Swinton's like doesn't make normal choices. She goes, "What's the most interesting character I can play?" And I feel like she defies any level of expectation. Because always making interesting choices. Even I think about even between Orlando or like Burn After Reading, or like, you know, even in the Marvel movies, like there's interesting choices all the way around. I feel like that's what matters to me. It's like very interesting choices.
Yeah. Well, you've been incredibly interesting, Nick. I've really enjoyed our time together. I feel like literally we could have an 8-hour discussion about all of this stuff. You've been very insightful and very inspiring, and I appreciate you being here and spending your time with us.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, man. This is super cool. Thank you for having me. And I hope, like,
thank you.
Yeah, I hope in some way that this, you know, helps somebody working on what they do best to become their best.
One last question for you. What advice would you give to anyone out there who has a dream, who not necessarily even just to make a film, but to just pursue their passion in life? What piece of advice would you give to them?
I don't care how cliche this is going to sound. Know yourself. Like, you have to know yourself. You have to know from your lived experience, like the stuff that shapes you, the stuff that really, really matters to you. Like, I think I neglected that far more than I should have in my life. I think I operate a lot by instinct, but not. I think in a way that's great, but it's also like in a way that needs to be more informed. I think about myself, and it's something I've really endeavored to do in the last couple of years was not putting the work first and putting yourself first, because I think you'll find what works for you, and you'll find what fits for you and suits your interests. You know, when you come to understand that, like all the stuff I named about the stuff I love, those revelations came in the last couple of years, because I finally took my foot off the gas pedal and went, well, what matters to you? Like, that isn't this project. Why did you choose to do this? Why did you choose to pursue it? You did all this stuff on Instagram because you thought it was great, but really why? And I think that, like, at the end of the day, like, you really do have to, that's why I quote Brene Brown, because I think Brene Brown is an incredible force for good in this universe. I think Brene Brown helped me understand so much of like who I was, and like just the I can't remember the book, the Gifts of Imperfection is like a great book that I think is a great starting point for anybody who's like really wants to understand themselves better. I think that's really what matters, because you'll realize what art you want to make, what books you want to read, the stuff that interests you, the genres are fantastic. Like, you know, you'll find I don't care. I know it's cliche, but just know yourself. Like that's it. And if you don't, like, try to come to understand what that is. And I think one last thing, which is pay attention to the little impulses that you feel, like on each day. Like, this is a stupid example. It's the most minute example. But like, I remember I stopped drinking coffee, and then I drank a cup of coffee, and I got 2 sips in, and I felt like completely different in this way where I was like, oh no, that's not good. I should stop doing that. But it was a level of self-awareness that wasn't on a global level. It was like, no, I'm paying attention to minute by minute myself, my internal gimbal, my equilibrium, making sure that like what suits me all the time. And I make a lot of notes about it now. I never used to do it, but I started doing it a lot. I make notes about movies I like, why I like them, books I've read. Like, and if you don't keep a journal, you should start. Like, keep it and have it and do it. And you don't have to do it every day, but I certainly do it frequently. And I'd never done it before. And I do it all the time because it's a level of self-reflection you can read back to be like, why did I do that? Why did I not do that? Why did I make that choice? You know, because you can write it down in the moment why you made the choice and why you did it. But graphing that part of your life, I think as a filmmaker, is like why that matters so much. And like, I think it shapes everything about you. Like I said, that's so much of my life is shaped by all the stuff that I'm interested in and why I'm interested in it. You know, then I'm just rambling at this point, but that's pretty much it.
It's honestly, you've been incredibly insightful, and again, appreciate your time. And I can't wait for your next project. Good luck with all of your stuff coming up. And for those of you out there who haven't checked out The Lady in the Dale, I'm sure everyone who's been on this podcast will definitely check it out now.
God, it means a lot. Thank you so much for having me, man. This is like a really great discussion. I feel like what you do means so much, and I think impacts a lot of people. And like you're such a force, man. It means a lot.
Well, thank you, and thanks for being a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
thank you.
Thanks a lot, man. Good luck with everything.
Thanks.
All right. Wow. I mean, oh man, I literally could sit and have like 20 beers with Nick and just have more of a conversation like this. He was just a wealth of just insight, just spewing out so many amazing things. I've made a lot of notes here, and I think he made I think he gave us a lot to think about, and a lot of really great advice in terms of just journaling and writing out what it is that really matters to you. And I really liked what he said about just reflecting on what it is and why it is that you do what you do, and taking your foot off the gas pedal. Because I think a lot of the times we just go, and we just keep going through life. A lot of the times just, subconsciously or unconsciously, just doing what we do because that's what we've done continually. And I really loved how it seems like every day Nick just seems to look for the amazing uniqueness in life. And when people ask him how his day is going, he says fantastically, amazingly well, because he just saw a cloud that inspired him. Amazing. It's conversations like this that just keep me going and inspire me to just keep staying recommitted to my vision of being an actor and just creating this amazing community. And again, thanks to Nick. Be sure to check out The Lady in the Dale. It is on HBO, and I'm excited to see what he comes up with next. And then for those of you out there who are thinking about doing your own projects, if you have script or if it's a book, or if you're wanting to be an actor, whatever it is that is your dream, your passion in life, write it down. Start writing who in your life that you can think of that might be able to help you get to where you want to go. Like Nick said, he sat and wrote down his dream list of 20 different producers that he thought could help him with his vision. And he got it to a certain place where he had spent all these years compiling all this information. And then he got to a point where he realized that he just said he just needed some help. He needed someone to help bring this to that next level. And sure enough, through his passion, his hard work, his determination, he was able to get it in front of the dream people, the Duplass brothers, that helped bring his vision to reality. So it just goes to show you that with passion, with hard work, with determination, and with a plan, anything is possible. So thanks for everyone who was here tonight. And again, I appreciate you guys watching. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and please share this with anyone out there who you think might be interested in getting some insight, some more motivation, some inspiration in their lives. And thanks for being here tonight. I will see you guys all next week. Take care.